The world's most original thinkers don't consume endless content. Instead, they practice a low-information diet to cultivate original thoughts. In the next 20 minutes, you are going to learn 10 strategies to clear your mind, escape infobesity, and regain your ability to focus and create.
Stop consuming content you can't use.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't learning, it's infobesity.
Yeah.
We really need to remove the noise to actually hear your own intuition. And our mission in this deep dive is exactly that.
Right.
For you, the listener, we want to shift the focus from passively hoarding information to actively applying it. We're going to build a filter so that what you consume actually serves you rather than just overwhelms you.
Okay, let's unpack this, because that term infobesity is just incredibly accurate for the modern age.
It really is.
We are just gorging on data, articles, hot takes, newsletters. It feels like productivity, but it's really just overconsumption.
We mistake the feeling of acquiring information for the act of taking action.
Oh, wow.
You read a fascinating article about, how to be a better writer. And your brain gives you this little dopamine reward as if you actually sat down and wrote a chapter.
Right, but you didn't.
You didn't. You just consumed. And that false sense of accomplishment keeps us trapped in a cycle of endless scrolling and reading without ever producing anything of our own.
That is a brutal reality check. So how do we flip that dynamic? We clearly need a shift in our daily habits to prioritize making things over just taking things in.
Exactly.
Okay, that was a setup. Let's move to our first major shift, which is strategy number 1. The concept flip. The rule of thumb here is that you need to actively create 2 times more than you consume. But why that specific ratio?
Well, it comes down to cognitive load and mental pressure. Imagine a massive water dam.
Okay.
If you only let water rush in from a heavy rainstorm, right? The constant torrential input of podcasts, tweets, news alerts, videos.
It's just a flood?
A total flood. And you never open the spillway to let water out through creation, the pressure builds until the concrete cracks. Your brain isn't designed to endlessly store incoming data without a release valve. Creation is that spillway. Whether it's writing a journal entry, summarizing what you learned for a friend, sketching a design, coding a project, you just have to let the water out.
Writing a journal entry or summarizing a concept makes sense, but creating twice as much as I consume sounds completely exhausting.
That sounds like a lot.
I mean, we're taking in hundreds of pieces of media a day. I can't write 100 essays.
Which is exactly the point. The goal isn't to force yourself to produce an impossible amount of content. The 2-to-1 ratio is actually a forcing function to drastically reduce your consumption.
Oh, I see.
If you know you have to create twice as much as you consume, you become fiercely protective of what you allow into your brain in the first place. You stop aimlessly scrolling because you know you'd have to process and synthesize all of that junk.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. It forces a massive reduction at the source.
Yeah.
So how do we stop the rainstorm? Or at least, reduce the downpour to a manageable trickle? That brings us to strategy number 2. Unsubscribe day.
You have to alter your environment before you even try to alter your habits.
Right.
Willpower is a finite resource.
Right.
By the end of the day, your willpower is depleted, and that's when you start mindlessly consuming. Instead, you ruthlessly clear your inbox and your social feeds.
Just burn it all down.
Basically, go through and unsubscribe from every newsletter you haven't opened in the last month. Unfollow every account on social media that doesn't actively inspire you or make you better. We tend to hold on to these subscriptions out of the fear of missing out.
Yeah, we think, well, maybe this guru will drop a profound insight next week.
Exactly.
It really is digital hoarding. We hold on to this digital clutter because it doesn't take up physical space in our homes, but it absolutely takes up cognitive space in our heads.
100%.
Every time you open your inbox and see 50 unread promotional emails, your brain has to process that clutter. It's a micro tax on your focus.
It drains your mental battery before you've even started your real work. You aren't losing information when you unsubscribe. You are gaining clarity. You are curating your environment so that default behavior works in your favor.
Right.
When you open your phone, the only things waiting for you are things you truly value.
So set a date. Make it this Saturday. Call it unsubscribe day, pour yourself a cup of coffee, and just go to town clicking unsubscribe. Take back your digital real estate. Remember, ruthless reduction brings mental space.
It is incredibly liberating.
Yeah.
And once you clear out the junk, you have to be much more intentional about how you handle the important information that remains.
So we've stopped the flood of junk, we've cleared the environment, but we still need to know what's going on in the world. The trap people fall into here isn't the junk, it's the news. How do we stay informed without getting paralyzed? That brings us to strategy number 3, the 3-source rule.
What's fascinating here is how our brains crave certainty.
Mm.
We naturally gravitate toward news sources that validate what we already believe, which creates a very comfortable echo chamber. Or, conversely, we try to read absolutely everything to find the objective truth,
Which is exhausting.
and it leads to complete paralysis and anxiety.
Yeah.
The fix is the 3-source rule. You strictly limit your news inputs to 3 distinct sources. Ideally, these should be sources with slightly different editorial perspectives.
Right, because if you're checking 10 different sites, you aren't actually getting more informed. You're just reading the exact same story, repackaged 10 different ways, getting angrier or more anxious with each click.
Exactly.
3 sources are all you need to get the facts, understand the context, and see the different angles. Beyond that, it's just noise.
By capping it at 3, you force yourself to see diverse viewpoints, but you establish firm boundaries with the information ecosystem. You eliminate the endless doom scrolling.
We've capped the news, but what about the long-form content we intentionally keep? Books, deep articles, things we actually want to learn from. I fall into the novelty-seeking trap all the time.
Oh, we all do.
I finish a book, log it on an app to show everyone I read it, and immediately grab the next new release.
We treat books like trophies to be collected rather than tools to be used.
Mm-hmm.
Novelty seeking feels like learning, but it's really just entertainment. This is where strategy number 4 comes in. Rereading.
Yay, reading.
Staying on that constant treadmill of new content keeps us permanently at the surface level. We never actually master the basics. If you read a profound book that has the power to change how you think, reading it once isn't enough.
Right.
You have to reread it. You revisit it 6 months later when you have new life experiences to apply to its lessons. Rereading is how you take an idea from short-term memory and bake it into your mental models.
It's the difference between dating an idea and marrying it. If you really want it to impact your life, you have to commit. But what if I want to master a completely new subject? Reading one book deeply is great, but relying on one author's viewpoint feels like a fast track to bias.
Which leads us to strategy number 7, syntopical reading. This is the ultimate fix for surface-level learning. Instead of reading one book on a topic and adopting that author's viewpoint as the absolute gospel truth, you read 3 books on the exact same topic at the exact same time.
Honestly, syntopical reading sounds exhausting. I struggle to get through one book, let alone juggle 3 simultaneously.
It is a heavier cognitive lift, but it is a game changer for critical thinking. When you read syntopically, you aren't just a passive receptacle for an author's ideas. You become an active interrogator.
Interesting.
You compare how author A approaches the problem versus author B. Where do they agree? Where do they wildly disagree? Instead of skipping like a flat stone across the surface of a pond, syntopical reading is like putting on a heavy diving suit and sinking all the way to the dark, quiet bottom to see what's actually down there.
You feel the weight of the subject. You see the nuances that are invisible from the surface. You aren't just learning facts. You're learning how different experts think about those facts. You start to see the framework behind the arguments.
And it protects you from intellectual fragility. If you only read one book on economics or one book on psychology, you become a disciple of that one author.
Right.
If you read 3 simultaneously, you become an independent thinker who can synthesize multiple perspectives into a unique conclusion. You're cultivating your own original thoughts, which is the entire goal of the low-information diet.
So we've cleared the environment. Now let's look at how we process what we actually keep. We're reading deeply, we've capped our news, and we're unsubscribing from the noise.
Yes.
We've covered reading and sources. Next, let's talk about the friction you need to build into your learning, because sometimes my biggest enemy is my own impulsivity. This brings us to strategy number 6, the 24-hour rule. I literally have a stack of 5 hardcover biographies on my nightstand right now.
Let me guess. Late-night purchases.
I bought them at 2 a.m. after watching a history documentary. Now, every time I go to sleep, I feel like Winston Churchill is staring at me, judging me for watching Netflix instead of reading.
That is the perfect example of ambient guilt. Impulse buying information triggers a powerful dopamine loop. You hit buy on a book or a massive online course, and your brain releases the same reward chemicals as if you had actually completed the work.
Wow.
You are buying the fantasy of the person you will become once you finish the course. But you aren't actually committing to the hard work of doing it. The result is that your hard drive gets filled with uncompleted courses, and your nightstand gets piled high with unread books.
The fix here is the 24-hour rule. You introduce friction by waiting 24 hours before buying any new information source. But wait, isn't waiting 24 hours just an excuse to procrastinate? What if I genuinely need that coding course for a project due next week? How do we tell the difference between impulse and necessity?
If it is a genuine necessity, the urgency and the logic will still be there tomorrow. If you see a course that promises to change your life, bookmark it, walk away, sleep on it.
Give it space.
If, after 24 hours, you still feel a deep logical conviction that this specific information will solve a current active problem in your life, then buy it. But 90% of the time, that late-night dopamine urge will fade, and you'll realize you don't actually have the time or the need for it right now.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because once you do buy it and you do consume it, how do you know if you actually retained anything? That is strategy number 8, teach it. I read things, I nod my head, I think, wow, that's smart, and 3 days later, I can't remember a single concept.
The human brain is incredibly skilled at deceiving itself. We suffer from what psychologists call the illusion of explanatory depth. We believe we understand complex systems right up until the exact moment we are asked to explain them from scratch. Then we stumble.
Wait, the illusion of explanatory depth, let's test this. Like, how a zipper works.
Try it. Explain a zipper to me right now without using your hands.
Okay, so there are 2 tracks of teeth, and the little slider thing, it pushes them together at an angle, and they interlock because, wait, are they shaped like hooks? I have no idea. I use a zipper every day, and I can't actually explain the mechanics of how they stay locked together.
That is the illusion in action. Your brain assumes understanding because of familiarity. To combat this in your learning, you have to force active retention. You have to teach it.
The 5-year-old filter, if you can't explain what you just consumed to a 5-year-old, you didn't learn it, you just swallowed it.
Exactly.
When you try to explain something to a child, you can't hide behind big, fancy industry jargon. Jargon is where ignorance hides. You have to break the concept down to its absolute most foundational, simple truths. If you can't do that, you need to go back to the source material.
It forces you to process the information rather than just host it temporarily in your short-term memory. Write it out, say it aloud to your dog, or literally explain it to a child. The act of translating the information from the author's words into your own simple words is the exact moment that learning actually occurs.
We've covered how to curate our inputs and how to deeply process the things we keep.
Yes.
Let's move to our final and perhaps most important piece of the puzzle, silence.
This is a tough one for a lot of people.
We need to talk about what happens when you turn the inputs off completely. Strategy number 5 is walking without audio. I will be the first to admit how hard this is. The moment I put my shoes on to go for a walk, my hand instinctively reaches for my phone and my headphones. The idea of walking for 30 minutes with just my own thoughts feels almost uncomfortable. Why do we fear that silence?
Because constant input is a numbing agent. It keeps us distracted from our own underlying anxieties, but it also blocks our own creative insights. When your brain is constantly processing an audiobook or a podcast, it has zero bandwidth left to connect the dots of all the things you've previously learned. You're just shoveling more coal into the furnace without ever letting it burn.
So the fix is to intentionally let the mind wander. Leave the headphones at home. Walk in silence. At first, your brain will panic. It will crave the stimulation. But after about 10 minutes, something magical happens. The chatter fades, and your subconscious mind starts handing you solutions to problems you didn't even know you were working on.
And there is real neuroscience behind that magical feeling. This leads us to strategy number 9, the energy of cognitive space. When you walk in silence and let your mind wander, you activate what neuroscientists call the default mode network in your brain.
The default mode network.
This network only turns on when you stop focusing on external tasks. It is the part of your brain responsible for consolidating memories, imagining the future, and connecting disparate ideas. When you constantly bombard yourself with information, you suppress the default mode network.
So by intentionally creating cognitive space, by being bored, essentially we are literally turning on the problem-solving engine in our heads. Silence isn't an absence of things, it's an active physiological presence.
The energy you gain from that cognitive space is profound. When you stop constantly reacting to notifications and news cycles, you reclaim your agency. You are no longer a ping-pong ball bouncing around in everyone else's agendas. You establish a calm, grounded baseline.
Which brings us to our final point, strategy number 10, which is the ultimate mindset shift. Silence is not empty. It is full of answers. And more importantly, you are officially granted permission to not know the latest trend.
That is so freeing.
You do not need to have a hot take on the controversy of the day. You don't need to have read the viral article everyone is tweeting about. It is completely okay to say, I haven't looked into that, so I don't have an opinion.
That might be the most powerful takeaway, if we connect this to the bigger picture. The ultimate goal of a learner isn't to be a trivial pursuit champion. It isn't to hoard facts. It's to generate wisdom. And wisdom requires space. If you relentlessly protect your attention, if you filter out the junk, and if you master your inputs, your outputs will inevitably change the world. Because your outputs will finally be authentically yours. They won't just be regurgitated noise.
Let's quickly recap the core keys we just covered. First, flip the equation. Prioritize creation over consumption to open your mental spillway. Second, curate your environment by ruthlessly unsubscribing to clear mental space.
Crucial step.
Third, escape the echo chambers by limiting your news to 3 sources, and escape surface-level thinking by rereading and doing some topical deep dives. Fourth, build friction with the 24-hour purchasing rule to stop ambient guilt, and test your attention with the 5-year-old filter. And finally, activate your default mode network by walking without audio and embracing cognitive space.
For you, the learner, this is why it all matters. By actively filtering the noise, you aren't missing out on anything important. You are doing the exact opposite. You are actively giving yourself the cognitive space to have your own original aha moments. You are protecting your most valuable asset, your attention.
We've established that silence is full of answers. So when you unplug your headphones and finally embrace that quiet space today, what is the difficult question you've been using endless content to avoid answering?
You've made it this far, so why stop now? There are 2 videos on your screen right now that are perfect for you. Just pick the one that looks most interesting and let's dive back in.